Ohio State went undefeated last year in a shortened 2020 season. They made the playoffs. They took on Clemson in the first round, and they absolutely destroyed them. That was the first of what will be a 2-game losing streak for Clemson after this Saturday's games. Ohio State then advanced to the national championship game where they, of course, lost to eventual champion, the Alabama Crimson Tide. Can Ohio State get back to the playoffs in 2021? They've got questions on both sides of the ball, most notably, of course, at the quarterback position where Justin Fields left for the NFL. In this video, I'm going to give you a breakdown of Ohio State's 2021 team and give you a game-by-game prediction. Let's go. Yeah, good morning in that, though, but it's Uncle Lou here, though. Yeah, that's right, it's me, Uncle Lou, and I'm live for you on LouTube today. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it also, and in addition to that as well. Hey, subscribe to this channel if you're not already. Did you know I post college football videos almost every single day of the year? It's true. In fact, some of them are even watchable. Hopefully this Ohio State video will be. That determination is not up to me. It's up to you, the viewer. You can let me know in the comments section at the end of this video whether you think it was watchable or not. And let me know if you think I get Ohio State's record right or wrong. Ryan Day is back as head coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes, and they seem to just keep rolling along. They had Urban Meyer, never lost. Ryan Day comes in. They still never lose. I don't remember the last time Ohio State lost 2 games in the regular season. It was a long, long time ago. They've been one of the best programs on planet Earth during the playoff era, no doubt about it. Justin Fields does leave, so they have to find an answer at the quarterback position, but they've got some talented options to choose from. And over on the defensive side of the ball, 3 starting linebackers are gone. Got to find something to do there. But Ohio State is loaded. They recruit in the top 5 every single year. And in fact, they did announce not that long ago that the starting quarterback would be none other than C.J. Stroud. He was the number 2 ranked pro-style quarterback in the 2020 class, which makes him a redshirt freshman. He did play some last year, although he didn't even attempt a single pass. He played some mop-up duty in the end of a couple of games last year, handing the ball off and taking a knee a couple of times. Has yet to throw a pass at the college level. He's 6'3". He's a big, strong guy, can make all the throws, a big arm. And let's just be real. Can anybody think of the last time Ohio State had a quarterback that didn't put up ridiculous numbers? It's been a long, long time. It hasn't seemed to matter who the quarterback is for Ohio State. You can pretty much pencil them in for 4,000 to 4,500 yards and between 40 and 50 touchdowns. I don't know that C.J. Stroud will match Justin Fields' numbers from last season. They were just absolutely ridiculous. What a season was shortened, so forget, he may have more touchdowns, but Fields completed 70% of his passes, 9.7 or 9.8 yards per attempt. I mean, these are just ridiculous numbers, and of course, that's one of the reasons why we see Justin Fields got drafted so high in the draft this past year. But I don't have any doubt in the Ohio State quarterback position. I mean, I think there are certain schools or certain programs that receive benefit of the doubt in certain areas, and when it comes to quarterback, I think Ohio State is one of those teams. Oklahoma, quarterback, same thing. It doesn't matter. They swap quarterbacks in and out. They seem to have ridiculous numbers every single year. You take a team like Georgia, my favorite team. You don't even really need to know the names of the running backs. Aren't you pretty sure Georgia's going to have a couple of really, really good running backs every single year? Yeah, same thing with quarterback at Ohio State. So although I do have a little bit of hesitation, just because I've never seen C.J. Stroud throw a pass in college, I don't have any reason to doubt Ohio State's ability to have its quarterback put up ridiculous numbers offensively. Ryan Day is a really, really good offensive mind, and he finds a way to use his quarterback's talents every single year, no matter what those talents might be. Now, it's not going to hurt that they have probably the best wide receiver group in America. The wide receiver room at Ohio State is absolutely ridiculous, led, of course, by probable All-American Chris Olave, but it doesn't stop there. I mean, you just rattle off these list of names. Most people know most of these names. Olave, Wilson, Fleming, Smith, Najigba. Not my job to say his name right. And, of course, how can we forget Marvin Harrison Jr.? That's right, Marvin Harrison Jr. on the squad as well. When you look over at the running backs, Master Teague returns. While I don't think Master Teague is as good as some of the other running backs Ohio State has had in recent years, he's better than I gave him credit for last offseason. I wasn't high at all on Master Teague heading into this past season. I still don't think he's an All-American or a top 10 running back in college football or anything like that, but he is better than what I thought he would be. You also have two freshmen that wouldn't surprise me one bit to see them play. Travion Henderson and Evan Pryor. Both of these guys were very highly recruited by every school in America. One of those two could be the next great Ohio State running back. Look at the offensive line. Two of the best tackles in America, left tackle and right tackle. Whoever the quarterback is going to have great protection on the edge from both sides. You do have to replace an All-American guard and a starter at center. So you have to replace two key spots there on the offensive line. But again, check the recruiting for Ohio State. The only thing lacking for whoever those two guys end up being starting on the line is experience. That's it. They've got a ton of talent at really every position group on the team. Let's take a look at their defense. Defense struggled a bit last year, especially earlier in the season against the pass, right? We all remember the Indiana game. Indiana almost beat Ohio State. It seemed to be wide receivers running open all over the field in several Ohio State games last year, which was unusual to see because normally Ohio State has an amazing secondary. Wasn't the case for most of last year. Now, they came together and played what was, without a doubt, their best game of the year in the playoffs against Clemson. And that's really what you want to do. You want to peak at the right time. And for Ohio State, that was the playoffs, and they were able to pretty much shut Clemson's passing game down for the most part. Really gave Trevor Lawrence a hard time. But overall, I think Ohio State's defense needs to play better in 2021, at least over the course of the season, than they did in 2020, because I'm not sure offensively they're going to put up the quite as many yards and points this year with C.J. Stroud as they did last year with Justin Fields, although every other position group on that offense is loaded like we talked about before. When you look at the defensive line, Haskell Garrett, a dominant inside player, almost unblockable. Now, Ohio State needs to find something to match up with him on the outside of the defensive tackle or defensive end position. It's I don't want to say it's easy, but it's easier to take out one elite defensive lineman than it is if you have to focus on more than one, two, or three. Now, they've got some potential here at the defensive end and defensive tackle position when you look at names like Tyreek Smith, Zach Harrison, a couple of true freshmen, including Jack Sawyer. So, again, with the defensive line this year of Ohio State, it's not a talent issue, a little bit of an experience issue, though. You lost some good ones last year off of that defense. We'll see who steps up to replace them. Linebacker is my biggest question mark on Ohio State's defense this year. Losing 3 starting linebackers. So you're going to have a lot of new faces, a lot of fresh faces, at least when it comes to starting at the linebacker position this coming up year for Ohio State. But again, a lot of names that I don't think anybody would be surprised to look down at the end of the year and see a ton of tackles, a ton of sacks, really, really good players. Guys like Pope, Young, Grant, Mitchell. Some combination of those guys there should be able to fill in at the linebacker position without a problem. And even though you lose 3 starting linebackers last year, I wasn't particularly blown away by any of Ohio State's linebackers last year. Tuf Borland was kind of a perpetual disappointment. Even I've heard from Ohio State fans for the last 2 years about Tuf Borland in particular. So it's not like you're replacing Mike Singletary at middle linebacker, but still a lot of experience gone out of the linebacker group at Ohio State. Defensive backs, Banks is back. Is his first name really Seven? I think Seven Banks is his name. He's going to be playing the one corner. Brown's back too from an Achilles injury, so he'll be the other corner. So you're good to go at the cornerback position, at least in terms of experience, even though Seven Banks did get absolutely humiliated in that national title game. But let's be real, Alabama's offense humiliated a lot of defensive backs last year. Safety, John Proctor, might be the biggest hitter on the team. Back in the day, he would have been one of those guys that receivers were afraid to run crossing routes in front of him, not really allowed to hit the receivers like that anymore, but he will come up and lay the boom on a running back. Pretty good safety. So I think Ohio State's secondary this year will be better than what we saw last year. The linebacker group is what's going to be the concern. Let's put Ohio State's schedule up on the screen, take a look at it, and see what their record might be. All right, like I said before, you can go back and look the last 5, 6, 7 years. You're not going to find a season where Ohio State lost more than 2 games. It doesn't exist. I mean, they go undefeated or 11-1 almost every single year. And in most years when they go 11-1 or just have the one loss, it's against an inferior team where they just slip up one particular week. Remember back to the Purdue game. Remember back to the Iowa game. Ohio State usually plays well and wins against its tougher opponents. And then if they catch a loss, it tends to be sort of a sleeper team that you didn't see coming. But they start things out actually tonight, Thursday night, on the road at Minnesota. Minnesota's a great team. Well, Minnesota's a good team. they have a great coach. He gets the most out of the available talent that he's able to get at Minnesota, which, let's just be honest, is nowhere near the talent level of an Ohio State. I do think this is a tough opening matchup for a quarterback making his first start. I expect that Minnesota defense to throw all different kinds of looks at CJ Stroud tonight, try to confuse him, try to show him things maybe he's never seen before. And it wouldn't surprise me to see CJ Stroud get off to a little bit of a slow start tonight. However, Ohio State's talent level is just too much to lose this game, in my opinion. Normally, Thursday night games where a highly ranked team has to travel on the road to play an inferior team is a recipe for disaster for the higher ranked team. I don't think that's the case in a week 1 game. The problem with playing a Thursday or a Friday night game during the middle of the season is that it messes up your routine for the week and it eliminates a day or 2 days of practice in between games. With this being the first game of the season, I don't really think that it matters that this game is on a Thursday. Clearly, it matters that it's on the road, but I think Ohio State can overcome that. I think Ohio State wins tonight, and for you degenerate gamblers out there like myself, I would take Ohio State and I would lay the points. It's 13 or 14, depending on where you look. You might think that sounds a little bit too high. Maybe it is a little bit too high. If you go back and look over the last 2 seasons, I believe Ohio State has played 20 games. Of course, last year was a shortened season. I believe they played 20 games in the last 2 seasons. They're 18-2 against the spread. I bet Ohio State every single week. I don't even care who they're playing, and I don't even care what the line or the spread is. 18-2 against the spread in the last 20 games. I've made a lot of money betting on Ohio State. Doesn't mean they'll cover tonight, but I'm betting them tonight, and they will cover more than they don't. I mean, if you just look at the last 2 years, 18-2 is unbelievable against a spread over a 20-game period. Week 2, one of the biggest non-con matchups of the year. Now, there's a couple of big ones in week 1 that have got a lot of focus and attention. Of course, the Georgia-Clemson game and the Alabama-Miami game played earlier in the day on Saturday. The Alabama-Miami game is a warm-up game. Let's just be real. It's like watching the JV play before the real teams play, Clemson and Georgia, at 7:30. But when you look at week 2, you have some big games in week 2 this year, too, including Auburn at Penn State, Michigan versus Washington, and this one here, Oregon traveling to take on Ohio State. This will be a good game. I'm a believer in Oregon. I think they're a really, really good team. I like Mario Cristobal. Like Ohio State, they're starting a first-year starter at quarterback as well. They did that last year, too, and then he played the 1 year and transferred out, sort of a weird situation. So they're going to have a first-time starter at quarterback this year, too. They've got a great defense, 2 or 3 first-round NFL picks on that defense, in my opinion, led, of course, by, Kayvon Thibodeau. The guy's an absolute animal. I think this is going to be a great game. If this was in Oregon, I would probably I might pick Oregon to win this game if it was in Oregon. That's how good I think Oregon can be. But it's not in Oregon. It's in Ohio State at the Shoe, which Uncle Lou has visited. I visited the Shoe last Thanksgiving weekend. I was up that way visiting some family, went by, took a look at the stadium. Anyway, I've got to give Ohio State the win. I think they beat Oregon, and they're 2-0. Then you get 2 more non-con games against Tulsa and Akron. These will be CJ Stroud practice games, really. Try some different things maybe that you haven't tried yet during the first couple of weeks. Let some backups play a little bit. Ohio State can beat either of these teams by as much as they want to. You're 4-0. Then your Big Ten schedule picks back up on the road at Rutgers. I know Greg Schiano and Rutgers surprised a few people. They're a little bit better, I guess, than what people thought he would do there, at least immediately. He did get Rutgers turned around years ago when he was the head coach there before, but I'm not sure anybody thought the turnaround would be this immediate there. Not that they're going to win 9 or 10 games this year either. That's not what I'm saying. It's just a big improvement right away with Greg Schiano there. You do have to play there. Rutgers, probably one of the smallest home field advantages within the Big Ten. I think Ohio State gets the win. You're 5-0. In fact, even if I was trying to find a slip-up game for Ohio State this year, I don't think I would consider the Rutgers game a possibility. Now, the week after that, you play Maryland at home. I do think Maryland's going to be an improved team this year. They got Pineapple Jr. as the quarterback. They were headed in the right direction, at least in my mind, over the last couple of years. Might be an interesting game for a little while, but I think Ohio State pulls away, wins big in the second half. You're 6-0. That takes you into your bye week. Bye week comes at a pretty good time. You get it right in the middle of the season, so you get to rest up some guys, nurse some injuries, get some guys healed up if you have any injuries, anything like that. And then you come with what is, in some people's minds anyway, the game of the year in the Big Ten this year, Ohio State at Indiana. A lot of hype around Indiana this offseason. And I sort of get the reasons why. They have, I think, 17 starters returning. They have a really, really good quarterback Listen, it's possible that Michael Penix Jr., the quarterback of Indiana, has a better year this year than CJ Stroud. Does it mean that Michael Penix Jr. is better than CJ Stroud over the long run? But Michael Penix Jr. is the real deal. His issue, of course, has been staying healthy. He's yet to finish a season. 3 seasons as a starter, 3 season-ending surgeries. We'll see how he does this year. But they've got an exciting team. They're good. You've got to play them there. They're circling this game, that's for sure. They almost beat you last year during the regular season. They gave you the toughest game by far in the regular season. I just don't think Indiana's good enough to beat Ohio State this year. I don't. You get them right after a bye week, so you get 2 weeks to prepare. The scheduling works out great for Ohio State here. I think you get the win at Indiana, and you're 7-0. You play Penn State. This is traditionally considered the biggest game in the Big Ten East every single year. Ohio State versus Penn State. Penn State, of course, had a terrible year last year, losing their first 5 games before turning it around and winning their last 4 games. So sort of a weird tale of 2 seasons for Penn State last year, starting 0-5, finishing 4-0. Finishing with a record then of 4-5. Penn State's not as bad as their record indicated last year. I think even Ohio State fans would have to admit that. However, they're not in Ohio State's league right now. Their quarterback situation is a little iffy, in my opinion, with Sean Clifford. He's looked good at times. He's looked bad at times. Micah Parsons no longer there, their best defensive player. Freiermuth, the tight end, who's all world, he's gone. So it's not that I think Penn State's going to be bad. In fact, I think Penn State could win 9 or 10 games this year, but one of those 9 or 10 is not going to be this Ohio State game. You also get them at home, so you don't have to worry about one of the whiteout situations. I think you beat Penn State. On the road at Nebraska. Who will be their head coach at this point in the year? I don't know. I honestly don't know. Probably Scott Frost. He played there. They're probably not going to fire him during the season, although in my opinion, he deserves to be fired like yesterday. But they're just an absolute disaster. Nebraska, poor Nebraska. They have to play Ohio State here late in the season. They have to play Oklahoma coming up here in a couple of weeks. Not going to be a good year for Nebraska, especially after the egg they laid against Illinois in week 0. Listen, if you're Nebraska, year 4, Scott Frost, year 4, Adrian Martinez, and you can't beat Illinois, there's not very many teams in the Big Ten Nebraska can beat, especially Ohio State. You get a huge win there on the road at the Cornhusker Man. Then you come back home for 2 home games in a row, Purdue and Michigan State. Purdue's another team I think could be looking for a coach at the end of this season. Brom has really fell off the map the last couple of years. When he beat Ohio State a few years ago and had Rondale Moore running all over the place, Brom's name was getting mentioned as a candidate in some of these more high-profile jobs. He turned some of them down. Now he could find himself in a situation at the end of this season where Purdue doesn't even want him. Michigan State, second-year head coach Mel Tucker. I like Mel Tucker. You know, he worked for Kirby at UGA as defensive coordinator and defensive backs coach. Had a short stint as head coach at Colorado. I don't know what it is he did at Colorado that made Michigan State look and go, you know who we need? Mel Tucker, because he wasn't very good as a head coach at Colorado. He's been at Michigan State before as an assistant under Nick Saban 25 years ago or whatever it was. I just don't think Michigan State's a very talented team. I think you get that win along with a Purdue win. You're 11-0. And you finish things up. Look, Ohio State's got a chance to end 3 coaching careers in the last month of the season. Scott Frost, Jeff Brom, and Jim Harbaugh. You're going to see Jim Harbaugh gritting his teeth like you've never seen before. Why does it seem like Jim Harbaugh's jaw is wired shut? The guy's like this all the time. I mean, it looks like he's having a heart attack constantly. And the khaki pants that are too tight and that. Michigan, another team that in my opinion is not going to have a very good year. They still can't figure out the quarterback situation. They played multiple QBs last year. One of them, Joe Milton, after playing amazing in week 1, kind of crapped the bed the next couple of games and got benched, so he transferred out. It's just a big mess at Michigan, in my opinion. A lot of pressure on Jim Harbaugh. I know some people are saying, well, he got a contract extension. Yes, that's true. They extended him out more years, but they lowered his buyout. And that's the key factor there. I really believe that if Michigan has another bad year and loses to Ohio State, and by bad year at Michigan, I mean 7 or 8 wins, I really believe Harbaugh could find himself out of a job. So Ohio State finds itself in a unique situation, really, where they could end the coaching careers of not 1, not 2, but 3 different coaches in the month of November this year. I don't mean career. I'm sure those guys would find jobs somewhere else down the road. Scott Frost, Jeff Brom, and Jim Harbaugh. But those 3 coaches could be out of a job at the end of this year, and one of the big reasons why could be Ohio State. I tried as hard as I could to find a loss here for Ohio State, and I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know that I would bet on Ohio State to go 12-0, even though that's the prediction that I came up with here. Football, and college football in particular, is a strange, strange game. We see teams all the time lose games, and you sit there and you're scratching your head and you're going, how did they lose that? Like, no one saw that coming. Well, when you're doing one of these prediction videos, it's really hard to try to figure out, A, will that happen? And B, if it does, which sort of middle-of-the-road team will this elite Ohio State team lose to? It's hard to pick that one out. Sometimes you can find a quote-unquote trap game on a schedule. I really don't see one on this schedule. I think your toughest game, Indiana, at least within the Big Ten, you get after a bye week. That's your toughest road game, at least. Oregon, probably the best team that you play, but you get them at home. And the Pac-12 has just struggled in big-time games against other big-time conferences. I'm a Mario Cristobal fan. I like the talent that Oregon has. I'm a believer in what they're doing there. I think they've got a legitimate chance to win the Pac-12 this year. It's just hard for me to imagine Mario Cristobal and Oregon rolling into Columbus, Ohio in week 2 and beating Ohio State. I have a feeling Ohio State will lose a game somewhere this year just because it's so hard to go undefeated. I mean, it's really, really hard. You even look at my Georgia Bulldogs from a couple of years ago, who are a really, really good team. They lost to South Carolina in the regular season. I mean, South Carolina was a 4-win team. If South Carolina and Georgia would have played 100 times that year, Georgia would have beat them 99. But you don't play a team 100 times a season. You play them once, and all it takes is one bad outing by your team to slip up and lose a game like that. But trying to predict which game that might be in the offseason is next to impossible. And so for that reason, in this prediction video, I'm picking Ohio State at 12-0. However, if I was a gambling man, I would put my money on 11-1. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Oh, by the way, if you haven't seen it already, I picked Wisconsin to go 12-0 as well. So I don't normally project conference championship games as far as making a video about it. But if you watch the prediction videos, you can figure out who I think is winning each division. I've got a 12-0 Ohio State or 11-1 versus a 12-0 or 11-1 Wisconsin in the Big Ten title game this year. I appreciate you guys watching the video. I'll be live streaming tonight during the Ohio State and Minnesota game. So if you guys want to come hang out for a little bit with me here on the channel and watch the games together, I'll be here. I won't be able to go live till about 9 o'clock because my son has soccer practice tonight. But I'll be able to go live during it, all of the second half, probably some of the second quarter too. I think the game comes on at 8. So I appreciate everybody watching though. Have a good morning.